I found my wife's affair with our neighbor, and now she's claiming I hijacked her inheritance of $300, $0 to ruin her. She's threatening legal action after I uncovered a hidden deed to our house worth over $1 million. I never thought I'd be sitting here telling a story like this, but life has a way of throwing you curveballs when you least expect it. It all started with what I thought were small, insignificant signs, little things that in hindsight were red flags I should have paid attention to. My wife, Lisa, had always been a bit of a drama queen, but recently she'd become more distant, more secretive. She'd start working late, claiming she had extra meetings or client dinners. She'd hide her phone more than usual, and sometimes I'd catch her deleting texts or changing her passcode. Nothing outright, but enough to make me suspicious. Then came the night I found her phone open on the counter, and I saw a message from someone named Jake that read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've missed you so much." My stomach dropped. I didn't even need to read the rest. I knew exactly what it was about. My gut told me it was more than just innocent texting. I decided to dig deeper. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention to her habits. She was more anxious, more defensive whenever I brought up her whereabouts or her phone. I even caught her lying about where she was going once, claiming she was at a yoga class but then saw her sneaking out of her friend's house late at night. One night, I decided to follow her. I parked my car a few blocks away, and what I saw made my blood run cold. She went into a house I didn't recognize, and after a few minutes I saw Jake, our neighbor Tom, walk out. They kissed. I couldn't believe my eyes. My wife, my partner for over 10 years, cheating on me with our neighbor. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I didn't confront her that night, but I knew I had to do something. I needed proof, concrete proof, before I said anything. The next morning, I started digging through her things. I found a hidden drawer in her jewelry box that I'd never noticed before. Inside, there was a stack of receipts, hotel bills, restaurant tabs, and a bunch of cash. I also found a handwritten note with a date and a time, along with a location that was definitely not our house. My hands were trembling as I pieced everything together. Lisa had been sneaking around for weeks, maybe longer, and she wasn't just cheating. She was lying about everything, even her own life. What really threw me for a loop, though, was the discovery of a deed. I came across a document in her laptop's hidden files, an entirely separate deed to our house, signed in her name alone, worth over $1 million. I couldn't believe she'd gone behind my back that far. She'd been planning something, I knew it. It was like she was preparing to run away, or maybe even take the house and leave me with nothing. The betrayal cut deep, but what enraged me more was her blatant lies about her inheritance. She'd been claiming she had no money, that she was just scraping by, while secretly planning her escape with a fortune I didn't even know she had. I was furious. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly just numb. I had trusted her for more than a decade, and it turned out she'd been living a double life. I couldn't sleep for days, replaying everything in my mind, her sneaky texts, her secret meetings, that damn deed. I wondered how I hadn't seen it before, how blind I'd been to her lies. And then the anger started to boil over. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed to be smart about it. I wasn't going to just blow up and shout accusations. I wanted to catch her off guard, get her to admit everything on record. That's when I started planning my next move. I reached out to a lawyer I knew, and I began to gather evidence of her infidelity and her hidden assets. I wanted to make sure I had everything I needed in case she tried to spin stories or claim I was trying to ruin her. I also started thinking about what I wanted from all this. Was I going to fight for the marriage, or was I ready to walk away? Honestly, I was leaning toward the latter. But I needed to see her reaction first, to hear what she had to say when confronted with the truth. So I waited. I kept quiet, watching her every move, preparing myself for what I knew would be an earth-shattering confrontation. I had no idea how she'd respond, whether she'd deny everything, cry her way out, or maybe even turn the tables and try to make me look like the bad guy. But I was ready. I knew her tricks. I knew her manipulations. And I knew I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. The day I decided to confront Lisa, I felt like I was walking into a trap I'd set myself. My heart was pounding and every step felt heavy with anticipation. I had everything prepared, screenshots of the messages, copies of the receipts, the deed, and my lawyer's contact info tucked away in my phone. I didn't want her to see me coming, not yet. I wanted her to know I was serious, that I'd uncovered her lies and that I wasn't going to take it lying down. When I got home that evening, she was already there, acting normal, too normal in fact. She was cooking dinner, humming softly, pretending everything was fine. It made my stomach turn. I couldn't tell if she was nervous or just a good actress, but I knew she was hiding something. I didn't say a word at first. I just sat down at the dining table, watching her move around the kitchen, pretending like she didn't have a clue what I'd found. Finally, I decided to break the silence. I pulled out my phone and laid the evidence on the table. "Lisa, I need to talk," I said quietly but firmly. Her face changed instantly. The smile faded, replaced by a look of confusion mixed with a flicker of panic. She looked at the photos, the receipts, the deed, and then back at me. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice trembling just a little. I didn't waste time with her lies. "I know about Jake. I saw the messages. I saw you sneaking out of that house last night. And I found the deed. You've been planning this for a while, haven't you?" My voice was steady, but inside I was boiling. I wanted her to admit everything. She stared at me, eyes darting around the room like she was trying to come up with an escape plan. "You're crazy, John," she spat. "You're just jealous. Because I've been working late, you don't trust me. All this is just you being paranoid." She tried to brush it off, but I could see the sweat on her brow. Her excuses sounded hollow, even to my own ears. "Paranoid?" I echoed. "You've been lying to me for months, about where you're going, who you're with, how much money you have. You've been hiding a whole life from me. And that deed, you think I don't know what that means. You're planning to run with a fortune I didn't even know you had." I let the words sink in. "How long have you been planning this? Are you trying to leave me with nothing?" Her face twisted into a snarl. "You're twisting everything. I never cheated on you. You're just paranoid, John. You're always accusing me of stuff. The deed, that's just a mistake. I was going to fix it. You're making a huge deal out of nothing." Her voice was high-pitched, desperate. She was trying to deny everything, but I had all the proof I needed. At that moment, I saw her crack. The mask was slipping. She looked away, then back at me, her eyes shimmering with anger and fear. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, I've got my own plans. I'm not some fool who's gonna be pushed around. I'll see you in court if you try to ruin me," she spat. That's when I realized she was trying to turn this around, make herself the victim, even as I had her cornered with evidence. I felt a mixture of rage and sadness. Rage because she'd betrayed me, cheated, and lied for so long. Sadness because I'd loved her once, believed in us, and now I was standing here, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I told her calmly but coldly that I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, that I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine, and that I'd expose her for what she really was, someone willing to betray her own marriage for money, sex, and a quick escape. She looked at me, eyes blazing with defiance. "Go ahead," she sneered. "See what happens. I've got lawyers too. You're not going to ruin me. I've got my inheritance, my plans, and I'll make sure you regret this." Her words sounded like a threat, but I knew she was just trying to save face. I wasn't about to let her manipulate me anymore. I had all the pieces now, and I was going to use them. After that night, everything changed. The confrontation was just the beginning. I knew I had to act fast before she disappeared with her hidden money and ran away with our house. I contacted my lawyer the next morning, and we started to plan how to take back what was mine and to make sure she wouldn't get away with her lies. I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief that I finally had proof, but dread about what was coming next. I knew this wasn't over. She was dangerous when cornered, and I had a feeling she'd fight dirty. I sat there, staring at the evidence I'd laid out, trying to process everything. My mind raced with questions. How long had she been planning this? How deep did her lies go? And what would happen when she finally realized I wasn't going to back down? I knew I'd be waking up to a new reality soon, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I was prepared for what was coming. The next few days felt like walking through a minefield. Every time I thought about what I'd uncovered, my stomach clenched. Lisa, on her end, played it cool, at least on the surface. She acted like nothing had changed, but I saw the flicker of nerves in her eyes whenever I looked at her. She'd try to act innocent, but her words didn't match her actions. She'd brush past me in the hallway, pretending she had no idea I was serious, but I knew better. She was panicking, and I was determined not to let her manipulate her way out of this mess. That Monday, I met with my lawyer, Mark. We went over everything: the evidence, her attempts at denial, her manipulative tactics. Mark told me she'd been planning a way to spin this, maybe even try to accuse me of harassment or financial abuse. She'd always been good at twisting things to her advantage, but I had the hard proof now. We agreed on a strategy: file for an emergency injunction to freeze her assets and get a court order to investigate the hidden deed. I also wanted to get her to admit the affair under oath, and I was ready to go to court if needed. While all that was happening, Lisa started to escalate her lies. She called me paranoid, jealous, and even mentally unstable. She claimed I was trying to ruin her because I was jealous of her success and her inheritance. She told anyone who would listen that I'd hijacked her inheritance to punish her, something she kept repeating like a mantra. It was infuriating. I knew she was spinning a story to make herself look like the victim, but I didn't care. I had the evidence, and that's what mattered. One afternoon, she confronted me in the living room, her voice sharp and dismissive. "John, you're just jealous. You always have been. That's why you're trying to ruin me. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're not going to get away with this. I have people on my side. You're just angry because I don't want to be your punching bag anymore." Her words stung, but I stayed calm. I told her that her lies wouldn't change the truth and that I was going to fight for what was mine: her inheritance, the house, everything she'd tried to hide. It was around this time that I made a decision. I couldn't keep living in this fog of deception. I had to put an end to her manipulations once and for all. I planned to take legal action to expose her, to make sure she couldn't spin her stories anymore. I also started secretly recording our conversations, just in case she tried to deny her involvement or lie under oath. I knew she'd do everything she could to save herself, and I had to be prepared. The biggest shock came when I discovered she'd been trying to transfer the deed to her sister's name, a move I only caught because I hired a private investigator. She was trying to hide her assets even further, thinking she could outsmart the legal system. That was the last straw. I called Mark immediately, and we drafted a motion to prevent her from transferring any more property or money. I felt a cold fury rising inside me. She was not going to get away with this, not without a fight. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act of the innocent victim. She was crying, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation, that I was jealous and controlling. She even accused me of trying to manipulate her inheritance for my own gain. It was a classic tactic: project her guilt onto me, make me the bad guy. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd seen her true face, and I was done being played. As the weeks went on, I started to feel a strange sense of clarity. I realized I'd been in a toxic relationship for years, blinded by love and comfort. Now all I could think about was how deeply she'd betrayed me: sex with our neighbor, lies about her finances, her sneaky plans to walk away with a fortune. It hurt like hell, but at the same time I felt a weight lifting. I was finally taking control of my life, even if it meant facing a future without her. Looking back, I see how naive I was to trust so blindly. She was always good at hiding her true self: charming, manipulative, selfish. I learned that sometimes the person you love the most can be the one who hurts you the deepest. But I also learned that you can't let that pain define you. You have to stand up, fight for yourself, and never let anyone take advantage of your trust again. Now I'm waiting for the court date, feeling a mixture of relief and dread. I know my life is about to change forever, but I also know I won't be again. I've got everything documented, and I've got my lawyer's support. I'm not just fighting for my money or my house. I'm fighting for dignity, for respect, and for the truth. And honestly, that's the best revenge I could ask for. The court date finally arrived after what felt like an eternity. I had spent weeks preparing, gathering every piece of evidence, and making sure my story was airtight. I couldn't shake the feeling that Lisa was already panicking, though she tried to keep her composure in front of her friends and family. She was still spinning her lies, claiming I was unfairly targeting her, that I was jealous and manipulated her inheritance. But I knew better now. I had the proof, and I was ready to lay it all out. The courtroom was cold and sterile, but I felt a strange sense of calm as I sat there waiting for my turn. Lisa was sitting across from me, her face pale but trying to look confident. She kept glancing at her lawyer, whispering nervously, probably trying to figure out her next move. I could see the sweat on her brow, and I knew she was scared. She knew I had her exactly where I wanted her. When the judge called my case, I stood up and started speaking. I laid out everything: how I found her cheating with Jake, the secret deed, her attempts to transfer assets, and her lies about her inheritance. I presented the screenshots, the receipts, the deed, and my recordings. I kept my voice steady, factual, not letting my emotions get the best of me. I was determined to make her see that I wasn't bluffing. Lisa's lawyer tried to object, claiming that I was invading her privacy and that the evidence was inadmissible. But the judge saw through that. I had legal authorization, and the evidence was solid. I could see Lisa's face tighten as I spoke. She was trying to maintain her composure, but her eyes kept darting around the courtroom, desperate. Then I dropped the biggest bombshell: the evidence of her plans to transfer the deed to her sister. I explained how I had hired a private investigator who uncovered her scheme. The judge listened carefully, and I could tell the courtroom was taking my side. When I finished, Lisa's lawyer tried to spin it, claiming I was trying to ruin her out of jealousy, but the judge wasn't buying it. The court granted my request to freeze her assets, prevent her from transferring property, and order an investigation into her financial dealings. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, and I felt a rush of relief. I had finally taken control. Lisa sat there silent, her face a mixture of anger and defeat. Her eyes darted to her lawyer, who looked equally frustrated. I knew this was just the beginning, but I also knew I had the upper hand now. The court had seen the truth, and that was all I needed. After the hearing, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and empowerment. I went outside, took a deep breath, and called my lawyer to confirm the next steps. I also reached out to a financial advisor I'd hired to assess her assets and see what could be recovered. I was finally starting to feel like I was reclaiming my life after months of betrayal and manipulation. But even as I celebrated this small victory, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lisa wouldn't go down without a fight. She was cunning and manipulative, and I suspected she'd try to come up with some way to spin things in her favor. I knew I had to stay vigilant. This wasn't over yet. The real battle was just beginning, and I had to be prepared for whatever she threw my way next. In the days that followed, I kept my distance. I didn't want to give her any reason to think she could manipulate me again. I was done playing her game. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my life, on ensuring I was financially protected, and on figuring out what I truly wanted moving forward. I realized that trusting someone blindly was a mistake I'd never make again. I also learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty to win, because people like Lisa won't hesitate to do the same. Looking back, I can't believe I allowed myself to be so blind for so long. But I also know that I'm stronger now, more cautious, more aware. I've learned that the truth always finds a way to surface, no matter how deep the lies are buried. And that in the end, justice isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your life and dignity. That's exactly what I intend to do. After the court ruling, I thought the worst was over. I had my legal victory, the assets were frozen, and I was feeling a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally taken control of the chaos Lisa had created. But I quickly learned that her desperation only fueled her worst instincts. Within days, she started lashing out, trying to spin new lies and even accusing me of harassment. She claimed I'd hijacked her inheritance and was trying to ruin her reputation, all because I dared to fight back. Her accusations reached a new level of nastiness. She told anyone who'd listened that I manipulated her, that I'd been controlling her finances, and that I'd used her inheritance to punish her. She painted herself as the victim, someone wronged by a jealous husband. But I knew better. I had all the evidence, and I was prepared for her smear campaign. I kept my head down, focused on the legal process, and refused to stoop to her level. The most Shocking development came when she filed a counterclaim, alleging that I had emotionally and financially abused her, trying to force her into giving up her inheritance. She claimed I'd manipulated her into signing documents and that I'd been controlling her money all along. It was a blatant lie, but I knew she'd try to use the courts to wear me down. I hired my own team of attorneys to counter her claims and to protect my reputation. Meanwhile, Lisa's behavior grew more erratic. She'd show up unannounced at my house, shouting and crying, trying to guilt me into dropping the case. She even went as far as to say she'd ruined her life because I was jealous and vindictive. It was exhausting, but I stayed firm. I knew she was trying to manipulate the situation, to make me feel guilty or responsible for her choices. But I also knew that I wasn't going to let her rewrite history. One day, she went too far. She hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on me, hoping to find something she could use against me, maybe some secret affair or some financial misstep. Luckily, I had anticipated her moves. I'd been cautious with my privacy, and I had all my affairs in order. When her pie came back empty-handed, she lost her last shred of credibility in court. Her attempts to smear me only made her look more desperate and unhinged. Throughout this chaos, I kept reminding myself why I fought so hard. I did it for myself, for my sanity, and for the truth. I refused to be the victim of her manipulations anymore. I also realized that the money she'd been hiding, the affair she'd been having, and her attempts to control everything about our lives, none of it was worth losing my peace of mind. I had to focus on moving forward, no matter how much she tried to pull me back into her world. Eventually, her lawyer advised her to settle. She knew she couldn't win this fight outright, especially after the court saw through her lies. She agreed to a settlement that included her relinquishing any claim to the house, her inheritance, and all her financial accounts. She was furious, but I didn't care. The battle was over and I'd finally won my life back. Looking back, I realize how much I learned from this nightmare. Trust is fragile and people can hide their true selves for a long time. Lisa's betrayal taught me to be more cautious, more vigilant. It also showed me that sometimes you have to fight dirty to protect yourself, because if you don't, others will use every trick in the book to take you down. Now I'm slowly rebuilding. I've started therapy to process everything, and I've taken steps to secure my finances and my peace of mind. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'm stronger than I was before. The pain of betrayal still lingers, but I refuse to let it define me. I've learned that sometimes the only way to truly win is to stand your ground and fight for what's rightfully yours. And honestly, that's the best lesson I could have gotten, one I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Now, looking back on everything, I realize how close I was to losing myself in that chaos. Lisa's betrayal cut deep, but it also forced me to confront a side of myself I never really knew, one that refused to be broken. I've learned that trust is a fragile thing, easily shattered when someone you love turns out to be someone else entirely. But I also learned that resilience comes from standing up for yourself, even when it feels like the world is crashing down around you. The aftermath has been I've gone through anger, sadness, and even moments of hopelessness. But each time I pulled myself back, reminded that I am more than her lies and manipulations. I've become more cautious about who I trust, more aware of the signs of deception, and more determined to protect what's mine. The house, the money, my sanity. These are things I fought for, and I refuse to let anyone take them away from me again. Revenge, I realize now, wasn't about causing pain for its own sake. It was about reclaiming my dignity, standing tall after being knocked down, and making sure she understood that her actions had consequences. I didn't need to humiliate her or ruin her life. Justice was enough. Seeing her face the reality of her actions, knowing she lost everything she tried to hide, was the sweetest victory I could have asked for. More than anything, I've come to see this experience as a harsh but necessary lesson. Trust carefully because people are capable of hiding their true selves behind a veneer of charm. Be vigilant because even the closest person can betray you when it suits their needs. And finally, never underestimate your own strength. because even in your darkest moments, you are capable of fighting back and coming out stronger. Today, I'm rebuilding my life on my own terms. The scars remain, but they aren't defining me anymore. I've learned to forgive, not for her sake, but for my own peace of mind. Moving forward, I focus on healing, on trusting again, but this time more wisely. I refuse to let her betrayal consume me. Instead, I use it as a reminder that I am capable of surviving the worst and emerging stronger. This whole ordeal taught me that sometimes the worst things in life happen not because you're weak, but because you're trusting the wrong people. And that's okay. Because in the end, what matters most is how you choose to move on. I've made that choice, stronger, wiser, and more cautious than ever before. And I'm finally at peace, knowing I've fought for my life, my house, and my dignity, and I've won.